It usually happens around 3 in the morning when the house is completely quiet. You are dead asleep, and suddenly it feels like someone took a heavy steel wrench to your right calf and twisted it as hard as they could. The muscle locks up so tight it pulls your toes downward. You throw the heavy blanket off. You swing your legs over the edge of the mattress and put your bare feet on the cold hardwood floor, trying to walk it off, trying to force the muscle to unclench before it tears itself apart. And while you are standing there in the dark, rubbing your leg, leaning against the nightstand, and trying not to wake your wife, you think to yourself, how in the world is this happening again? You drank water all day, you had a glass with breakfast, you kept a bottle in the truck, you had 2 more glasses with dinner. You did everything you were supposed to do, but as you stand there waiting for the knot in your leg to release, you realize that your fading muscles do not care about how much water you swallowed. They only care about what they actually absorbed. I did not understand that difference until my legs started feeling like they were made of wet sand. For 30 years, I worked the floor of a logistics warehouse right here in Knoxville. I spent my days walking on concrete, climbing metal stairs, pulling pallets, and sweating through my heavy work shirts. Back then, hydration was simple. There was a big orange cooler in the break room filled with ice and tap water. You grabbed a paper cup, you drank until your stomach felt full, and you went back to the loading dock. In your 30s and 40s, your body just figures it out. It takes that plain water and pushes it right into the muscle tissue. But nobody taps you on the shoulder when you retire and tells you that the rules have completely changed. Nobody tells you that after 60, your cell walls start to lose their flexibility. They get rigid. They stop pulling the water inside. My daughter Megan is an occupational therapist, and she was the one who finally sat me down at the kitchen island when she noticed I was hesitating before walking down the porch steps. She explained something to me that I had never heard of in all my years of working physical labor. She called it silent dehydration. She said that older folks can drink water all day long, but because their bodies have lost the tiny electrical charges needed to open the doors to the cells, the water just passes right over the muscle tissue and goes straight to the kidneys. You spend your entire afternoon walking back and forth to the bathroom, assuming you are perfectly hydrated, while your leg muscles are quietly drying out, shrinking, and becoming brittle. That is when she showed me a piece of paper that stopped me cold. It was a stack of research indicating that nearly 58% of older adults who are losing muscle strength managed to reverse that decline just by changing what was inside their water. Not by lifting heavier weights, not by walking 5 extra miles a day. Just by giving their bodies the tools to actually hold on to the hydration they were already consuming. That information hit me hard. I realized I was pouring water onto a concrete driveway and expecting the grass to grow. I had to completely rebuild the way I drank water. Over the next year, I tested and threw out a lot of garbage advice, and I eventually narrowed it down to 4 specific things that I started adding to my daily routine. 4 very simple adjustments that changed the way my muscles felt, the way my joints moved, and the way I carried my own weight. And I will tell you right now, the 4th one on this list is something that most men our age assume is only for 20-year-old kids lifting heavy iron in the gym. I thought the same thing. I almost refused to try it. But it turned out to be the exact thing that pulled my legs back from the edge and gave me my independence back. I learned these 4 things the hard way, one by one, and I want to lay them out for you exactly how I use them. The first thing I had to confront was my morning routine. For years, I would wake up, walk into the kitchen, turn on the faucet, and drink a tall glass of plain tap water. I thought I was doing my body a favor. But the truth is, when you wake up at our age, your body has spent the last 8 hours breathing out moisture and filtering out essential minerals. Your blood is a little thicker. Your muscles are depleted. Pouring plain water into an empty, rigid system does not hydrate the tissue. It just flushes right through you. I used to think the enemy was not drinking enough. I was wrong. The real enemy is drinking water that has been stripped of everything the earth intended it to have. Municipal tap water is clean, but it is dead. It has no charge. The mechanism here is something I had to picture in my head to really grasp. Inside every muscle cell in your leg, there is a tiny pump. That pump requires sodium and magnesium to operate. If those minerals are missing, the door stays shut. The water floats around outside the cell, causing swelling in your ankles while the muscle itself starves. To fix this, I started my mornings differently. Before I even turn on the coffee pot, I take a glass of room temperature water, I squeeze a small wedge of fresh lemon into it, and I drop in a tiny pinch of colored mineral salt. Not the stark white table salt we grew up putting on French fries. That stuff is chemically processed and raises your blood pressure without giving you any real benefit. I am talking about unrefined pink salt or gray sea salt, the kind that still holds the trace minerals from the earth. The lemon slightly lowers the acidity in your stomach, which signals your intestines to prepare for absorption. And that tiny grain of mineral salt provides the electrical spark that opens the doors to your muscle cells. I read a study that Megan printed out for me from the Kyoto Prefectural University of Medicine, published back in 2019. They took a large group of older adults, folks right in our age bracket, and had them increase their intake of naturally sourced electrolytes in the morning for several months. The results were not subtle. The folks who took the natural minerals experienced significantly fewer episodes of night cramps, and more importantly, they showed better postural stability when standing up from a chair. Their muscles were actually holding the water. I saw this exact thing happen with my wife, Linda. Linda is practical. She was an administrative school worker her whole life, and she has no patience for complicated health routines. She used to wake up with her hands feeling stiff, her fingers hard to bend, and she would rub her lower back for the first 20 minutes of every day. I started putting that glass of lemon and salt water on her nightstand before she woke up, just a tiny pinch. You can barely taste it. Within about 2 weeks, I noticed she was not rubbing her hands together in the kitchen anymore. The stiffness that she thought was just a normal part of turning 70 was actually just her joints waking up completely dehydrated. That simple glass of water gave her body the spark it needed to push moisture back into the tissue. But the morning glass is only the beginning. As the day goes on, especially if you are working in the yard or walking the neighborhood, you lose that fine balance. That brings me to the second change I had to make. I had to find a way to maintain that cellular hydration in the afternoon without falling into the trap that so many men my age fall into. And that trap is the bright blue and neon yellow sports drinks they sell at the gas station. We see athletes drinking them on television, and we figure they must be good for us if we are feeling tired. My son Derek runs a heating and cooling business. He spends his summers pulling ductwork in attics that get up to 130 degrees. He came over to the house one afternoon covered in dust and pulled one of those neon sports drinks out of his cooler. I told him he was drinking liquid candy. He laughed and said he sweat out all his salt and needed to replace it. But then he looked at me and said something that stuck. He told me that his older guys, the technicians in their 60s who still ran service calls, did not drink the sugary stuff. They bought clean electrolyte powders. Derek explained that when you get older, your kidneys lose their ability to hold on to minerals. They just let them slip away. If you try to replace them with a drink that is packed with high fructose corn syrup and artificial dyes, your body has to work twice as hard to process the junk, which actually ends up dehydrating you even more. That was the villain I had been letting into my house. The illusion of healthy hydration. The mechanism for fixing it is understanding that your thirst reflex is broken. By the time you actually feel thirsty in your late 60s, your cells are already operating at a dangerous deficit. You cannot wait for the signal. You have to give the body a clean, steady supply of magnesium, potassium, and sodium, completely free of sugar and stimulants. I found a clean powder that had nothing artificial in it. No colors, no sweet syrups, just the raw minerals. I started mixing half a teaspoon into a tall glass of water every afternoon around 2 o'clock. This is usually the time of day when my legs used to feel the heaviest. If I had to get down on the floor to look under the car in the garage, getting back up was a negotiation with my knees. The clean electrolytes changed that conversation. They gave my nervous system the specific tools it needed to keep firing smoothly. I shared this with a guy I know named Robert, who I always run into at the hardware store. Robert is 75, and he used to complain that after he mowed his front lawn, his legs felt like they were vibrating for hours. He thought it was just nerve damage from age. I gave him a jar of the clean powder and told him to drink it before he started the mower, not after. He stopped me in the lumber aisle 3 weeks later. He said the vibrating feeling in his legs was completely gone. His nerves were not damaged. They were just desperately starved for minerals, screaming for relief in a body that was full of plain, useless tap water. But I also know that not everyone wants to mix powders into their drinks. Some folks hate the taste of salt, and some folks just want something that feels more natural, something that does not look like it came from a supplement store. That is how I discovered the third layer of this process, and it is something I completely dismissed the first time Megan mentioned it to me. She told me to look into freeze-dried coconut water. My immediate reaction was resistance. I told her I was not going to walk around drinking out of those expensive, trendy little cartons they sell at the health food store. Most of those bottled coconut waters are pasteurized at high heat, stripping away the nutrients, and then they pump them full of added sugars to make them taste better. That is the obstacle here. The grocery store version is a compromise product, but Megan was not talking about the bottles. She was talking about the raw water from the coconut, freeze-dried into a fine powder that keeps the entire mineral profile completely intact. The mechanism behind this is fascinating to me. Nature already built the perfect hydration ratio. Coconut water contains a massive amount of natural potassium, along balanced amounts of sodium and magnesium. When you take the freeze-dried powder and mix it into your own water at home, it does not just rehydrate you. It delivers those minerals in a form that your body recognizes instantly. It is gentle on the stomach. It has a very mild, natural sweetness that makes it incredibly easy to sip throughout the day. I have a neighbor named Thomas. Thomas is 78 years old, a retired mechanic who spent his life bending over engines. His posture has suffered over the years, but his real problem was a constant, dull aching in his calves. He walked with this heavy, dragging shuffle, like he could not quite lift his boots high enough off the pavement. I knew Thomas would never drink salt water in the morning. He is too stubborn. He likes his black coffee and his iced tea. But I made him a glass of water with the freeze-dried coconut powder one afternoon while we were sitting on my porch. He drank the whole thing and asked what it was. I told him and I gave him a bag of it. About a month later, I watched Thomas walking down the sidewalk to get his mail. The shuffle was gone. He was picking his feet up. He told me later that the dull ache in his calves had faded away so quietly he almost did not notice it was gone until he realized he was not rubbing his legs in the evening anymore. The natural potassium in that coconut water helped his blood pressure stabilize, and the magnesium allowed his muscle fibers to finally relax. It was a gentle, quiet repair of a system that had been out of balance for a decade. He did not have to change his diet. He did not have to start a grueling exercise program. He just changed the quality of the water he was swallowing. These first three things, the morning salt, the afternoon electrolytes, and the natural coconut water, they build the foundation. They create an environment where your muscles can actually survive. But if you are already noticing that your legs are getting thinner, if you are already feeling your strength slipping away when you try to stand up from a deep chair, survival is not enough. You need to rebuild. And that brings me to the fourth thing I added to my routine, the one that made the biggest difference, the one that I almost ignored because of my own stubborn assumptions. I am talking about low-dose creatine. If you're anything like me, the word creatine immediately makes you think of massive, vein-popping bodybuilders taking scoops of white powder before they go bench press a small truck. It is sold in big black plastic jugs with lightning bolts on the label. I always thought it was an artificial stimulant for young guys trying to look good in a tight shirt. That is the villain here. The absolute misunderstanding of what this compound actually is and what it does. Megan sat me down and explained the actual mechanism of creatine, and it changed my entire perspective. Creatine is not an artificial steroid. It is a natural compound that your body already makes, and it is found in red meat and fish. But as we age, our bodies produce less and less of it, and our ability to extract it from our food drops dramatically. What creatine actually does is incredibly simple, but absolutely vital. It goes inside the muscle cell, it helps rebuild the basic energy currency that the cell uses to contract, and most importantly, it pulls water directly into the muscle tissue and holds it there. When your muscles are fully hydrated from the inside out, they become elastic again. They become resilient. They do not tear as easily. They fire faster when you stumble and need to catch your balance. I read a study conducted by researchers looking at older adults in both the United States and Japan. They gave seniors our age just a very small amount of creatine every day. Not the massive loading doses the young athletes take. Just 1 to 2 grams. The results were staggering. Without changing their exercise habits, these older adults saw a direct improvement in their lower body strength, their walking speed, and their reaction time. The compound was quietly rebuilding the energy stores inside their legs while gently keeping the tissue hydrated. I decided to try it, but I did it my own way. The young guys take it in the morning before they lift weights. But I learned that your body does all of its heavy repair work while you are sleeping. That is when your brain cleans itself out. That is when your muscle fibers knit themselves back together. So I started taking my small dose of creatine at night. About an hour before bed, I take a glass of slightly warm water. The warmth helps the powder dissolve completely so it is not gritty. I stir in just a tiny scoop, drink it down, and go to sleep. I will never forget the morning I realized it was working. It was about 5 weeks into the routine. I woke up, sat on the edge of the bed, and stood up. Usually there is a sequence to standing up. You plant your feet, you brace your knees, you put your hands on your thighs, and you push yourself up with a little bit of momentum. That morning I just stood up. My legs did not hesitate. The muscle felt dense. It felt solid. It did not feel like loose, fragile tissue hanging off my bones. It felt like the legs I used to have when I walked the warehouse floor. The creatine had pulled the hydration deep into the fibers and kept it there all night long. And there was something else I had not expected. An incredible mental clarity in the morning. Your brain uses the same energy currency as your muscles, hydrating the body at a cellular level, supporting it with the right minerals and the right compounds. It touches everything. It touches your memory, your mood, your patience with your grandchildren. When I felt that solid ground under my feet that morning, a massive weight lifted off my chest. For years I had been watching my legs get thinner. I had been feeling the stiffness creeping into my knees and my calves, and I had quietly accepted it. I thought it was just the unavoidable price of getting old. I thought the machine was just breaking down. But standing there in my bedroom, realizing that my muscles were not dying, they were just desperately thirsty, it was the greatest relief of my life. The fatigue was not inevitable. The weakness was not permanent. I just had not been giving my body the tools it needed to use the water I was giving it. I am not telling you that this is going to turn back the clock 30 years. I am not telling you that a pinch of salt and a scoop of powder is going to give you the legs of a marathon runner. But I am telling you that you do not have to accept the heavy, dragging, cramping decline that so many men our age surrender to. You do not have to wait until getting out of a chair becomes a dangerous event. You can restore the quiet rhythm of your body. You can give your cells the spark they need to hold on to the hydration that keeps them alive. Do not try to change everything all at once. Start with the morning. Start with the pinch of mineral salt and the lemon. Feel what it does to your hands. Feel what it does to your calves. Let your body recognize the balance again. Then look at how you are treating your muscles the rest of the day. If your legs are going, your freedom is going to follow right behind them. Do not let that happen over something as simple as the quality of your water. I am going to be right here, continuing to figure this out, continuing to do the work to stay standing. I hope you will do the work too. Protect your foundation. Start tomorrow morning.